Hello, everybody. Welcome back to yet another installment of Out in the Woods. It's me, your favorite psychotropic Capricorn, Jacob. And today I have yet another Raging Cajun from the land of community coffee. Um, this guest of mine, I'm very intrigued by the conversations we are about to have. But I will let him do the talking. Welcome to the show, Jean Pierre Vidrine.
Hello, thank
Hello.
you. Thanks for having
Um,
me. Hi.
of course, of course. Now, Jean Pierre, you actually responded to the feelers that I put out on social media. You were one of the few that actually did, and so for that you will be rewarded handsomely
Okay.
by being on this show.
Yes.
Jean Pierre, introduce yourself. Where are you from, and what do you do?
Well, I'm my name is Jean Pierre Vidrine. I am originally from Ville Platte, Louisiana.
Mm,
Currently living in Chicago.
hmm
My pay the bills job is just rather boring cashier, but when I'm not doing that, when there's not a global pandemic going on, I'm a performer. I work with a belly dance troupe called Raks. I handle their props and I get murdered by them on stage. I have performed in drag. It's not a regular thing for me, especially not lately. Not saying I'll never do it again, but I have. I've done it and kind of put the heels aside for a while.
You've had
And
your
I also
fun.
am. What's that?
You've had your fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. Something everybody should do at least once, I think.
Hmm
And then I'm also a tarot reader for hire.
Very, very storied, very interesting. Lots of different fun hats to wear.
Hmm.
Um, so really quick, I already told you before we started recording we were gonna get into your name. So,
Yes.
audience, Jean-Pierre's full name is Jean-Pierre Lizzie de Sade Vidrine. Let's talk about that name of yours. Where did all of these monikers come from?
Well, Jean Pierre comes from probably just a couple of ancestors. It's My mother was probably the last person in Louisiana to hold on to the old naming traditions.
Mm.
If you watch TV and movies, you think that all Cajuns have names like that, but not so much. That impulse to assimilate has taken hold, and so
Mhm.
most everyone has names like Scott and William and so forth. Lizzie DeSade, you might have guessed, was not the name my mother gave me. Lizzie DeSade was my drag name.
Oh,
Yes. and,
okay.
but when I started putting that aside and not doing it so much, I decided I really liked the name and I didn't want to lose it.
Mhm.
It happened after on my Facebook profile, I put that as my middle name, as a lot of drag queens do,
Mhm.
to get around the whole use your real name rule they have.
Right, right.
Had. I don't know what the deal is now, but when a friend of mine, he's an artist, he sent me some of his work. He actually addressed it to Jean Pierre Lizzie de Sade Vidrine. I don't know if he thought that really was my name or if he was having a laugh, but I saw it. I was like, I really like seeing that.
Yeah.
So when I had a little windfall of cash, I decided to just go for it and have legally changed it. So now that is my legal name.
What a good way to spend your money though, honestly. It well worth it. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
Jean-Pierre, let me tell you, it is well worth it. And just on a personal note, since I know that you are into the theater, did
Hmm.
Desaad come from what is it? The Marquis de Sade?
Yes. Yes. I took
Okay.
Lizzie
Okay.
from Lizzie Borden. The
Okay.
because the
Yeah.
very first time I did drag was in college, and I don't know why, I can't explain this. I had this bizarre fascination with that story of Lizzie
Mm.
Borden. I don't really have the interest that much anymore, but it was so strong in college. I had friends who were worried about me. I did Lizzie. I was a punk Lizzie Borden for Halloween one year.
I was gonna say I'm assuming that this was in the 90s, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so yeah, so you were living in the last great decade of slasher flicks, and of course there would be an obsession with Lizzie Borden at that time in one way or another.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
I don't have
absolutely.
it so much anymore, but the name kind of stuck whenever I would do drag. I was Lizzie. And then when I
Well,
decided
it's
to,
nice and punk, you know.
yeah, yeah. And when I decided to kind of to try to pursue it, and I was like, well, I need a last name, and I couldn't really come up with anything. I think I just read something about the Marquis de Sade.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, Lizzie de Sade, it kind of works. I was thinking I would change it eventually, but over time I grew to love it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
have since read some of the Marquis's writings, so
Uh-huh.
I
I was
kind
gonna
of earned
say,
my legs.
everybody, every audience, if you are not familiar with Marquis de Sade, just
Hmm.
go look at just go.
Yeah.
It's bonkers. Even I don't fully know if I understand everything that I got in the summary. So, but
Well,
anyway.
know that it was from his name that we get the word sadism.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. Wow, wow, wow.
If you read what he wrote, you know why.
So Jean-Pierre, where do you fall on the LGBT spectrum?
I'm on the B.
Big ol' B.
Bisexual, attracted to more than one gender.
There you
I
go.
used to for a long time, I convinced myself I was straight, but things that somewhere along the line I realized, oh, he's pretty. And things like that.
You just had
And
to
it's
be
like,
like,
well,
I can't deny myself these fresh fruits, you know?
yeah. Well, such a long time, when growing up in a small town in the South, that was definitely, there was an impressive culture about that.
Hmm.
Plus, I don't think I was around any really pretty men then. It's like, how do you know
Mm.
you like something if you're not around any great examples? You know?
Them swamp man, I tell you,
Oh, well,
swamp thing.
yeah, there's a lot of, the uber toxic masculine blah 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 there, which I
Hmm.
really didn't fit in when I'm sitting in my room by myself watching Jim and the Holograms. So
There you go. There you go. Which sidebar, have you watched Steven Universe?
no, I have not yet. I don't have cable or anything like that anymore.
Oh,
So,
okay, yeah.
and it's not on any streaming service that I have. I think I might just go and pick up a DVD at some point because I hear great things about that show.
I was
So
gonna say, if you like Jim and the Holograms, you will really love Steven Universe, and also bootlegging exists. So if you feel the need to bootleg, I will send you the website links. Okay, the government, you didn't hear that. Okay, so so when did you know that you were different?
well, that I was different, but I was really at an early age
Right.
when even though all I knew was that I like girls, and yet girls are icky at the same time.
Hmm. Hmm.
People are telling me I'm carrying my books wrong, I'm doing this wrong, and there's a certain word starts with an F and ends with a G or a T, depending on how they care to say it. That was
Hmm.
thrown at me, and I didn't even know what it meant.
Hmm.
So clearly, I knew something was up, and when I learned what that meant, and of course, people were telling you it's a bad thing, I would
Hmm.
get defensive and try to change myself and try to deny it. This is not pleasant to think about, of course, but
Well, I mean, that,
yeah.
but the thing is, there's always that through line,
Mhm.
a lot of the time, it's not necessarily people feeling different, it's other people making them feel different,
Oh yeah.
making them feel othered.
And I told you about my name, how that stands out.
Right.
That was a subject, even though it was stupid, because we were all learning Louisiana history. We all knew that we were descended from French
Right. Like,
settlers, and yet they think it's the weirdest thing in the world that this guy has a French name.
I was gonna say their grandpappies probably had French
Oh,
names at that
I thought it
point.
was weird that so many of them were named Holly and Scott.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Which,
very popular names the year I was born.
I was gonna say, I have a cousin about your age named Scott, and I just don't know. I don't know what they were thinking at the time. I don't know if they thought that was like a nice, strong name, but Scott just, uh, I don't know many great Scots, to be honest. Sorry if I have any friends named Scott out there listening. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm so sorry,
Nothing
but
personally against the name. I just think that a lot of uh, women then just thought that was a great name, and they all went with it, because I knew a lot of Hollies as well.
mhm.
Apparently, a lot of moms thought, "Oh, Holly is such a beautiful name." It's like, well, a lot of you thought that apparently.
Yeah, very, very vanilla, but it was just the time. It was just the time.
Mm,
So actually, so you mentioned in your application email that your
yes,
coming out story was actually published in a book. So
yes.
first, I want to know about your coming out story, and second of all, I really just want to know how it ended up being published.
Well, the coming out story, it was this is going to get maybe a little sensitive here, but you know, you're going to sleep. I was married at the time
Mm-hmm.
to someone who at the time was presenting as a woman, but has since come out as a non-binary transmasculine individual.
Mm.
Uh, but I was laying down, and of course, at the time, I'm tripping over my words here. Excuse me.
Oh, you're fine.
Said individual was already out as bisexual. Then, then, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any trouble with it. I'd already gotten over a lot of the old attitudes, homophobia and such.
Mm-hmm.
Had a number of queer friends. Still thinking I was straight though. But one night, I'm laying down to sleep, and of course, I never fall asleep right away.
Mm-hmm.
And your mind wanders into the realms of sexual fantasies. And a dude turned up. It's like, whoa, where'd that come from? What are you doing here? Oh, hi. Yeah. And so, and of course, I didn't have that self-loathing anymore, that inner repulsion that I would have at a younger age
Mm-hmm.
when I was much more insecure about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started, I started thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I realized there's much more going on here. And first came out to my spouse, and I just kept quiet about it for a while because I figured, whatever, I'm married to a woman.
Right. Right.
So why bother? But then I couldn't help myself. I started looking at bisexual, this, that, and the other. Found out about the flag and then symbols and
Yeah.
discourse about it, and I saw so much, so many people that is who themselves were afraid to come out because they didn't see any other bisexuals.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know that there weren't anymore or very many out there. So I went on Facebook. It was actually National Coming Out Day. That day in October, is it? September?
Yeah, it's October.
Yeah,
That's the
October.
day I actually came out to my family. Yeah,
Yes.
actually. So yeah.
So I went on Facebook and I just posted, here's the thing.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
bisexual. There, I said it. Well, how it got published though, I think I'm not on Tumblr anymore, but I used to be, and I saw this, it was a call for stories
Mm-hmm.
from a publisher called Eldridge Books.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking for coming out stories. And I said, what the heck? So I wrote up a little thing and I sent it to them. Didn't really expect a response.
Yeah.
I got a response. The editor is a man named Vinny Kinsella.
Mm-hmm.
He had notes. He said, okay, what we need here, we need a little something more. What sets your story apart? Because so many of these stories have similar things. And so he told me to talk more about having once espoused homophobic views.
Mm-hmm.
My own little defense mechanism, or I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure what that's the right word, but my way of saying, no, I wasn't gay.
Right, all right.
Like when people were throwing those slurs at me so loosely and all. And
Right.
So I took his advice and I dragged my feet for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about it with a friend of mine, a gay man though, and I was, I'm not sure if I can do this because it actually meant taking a hard look at myself, things I'd said in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was not fun. But he said, look, people could benefit from your story.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the belly dancers in the troupe I work with. So I said, all right. So I sat down and I was brutal, brutal with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a confession, really.
Yeah.
And so I sent that back and it was published. The book is called Fashionably Late. The book for people who came out as on the spectrum, men specifically, after their 20s.
Oh.
So it didn't necessarily have to be that late, but after you've already experienced quite a bit of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people are already married and having children in their 20s. And so to come out after that, that is a thing.
Well, I mean, I always tell people, it's gonna happen in its own time for different people, and especially, a lot of people, even in my generation, even in the millennial generation, there was still a lot of controversy, still a lot of hesitation, but I was able to come out a little sooner because by the time I was around the age when people normally come out, the Marriage Equality Act had been, passed by the Supreme Court and everything like that. And the world felt a little bit more accepting. And now
Mhm.
Gen Z, I mean, the sky's the limit kind of for Gen Z, I feel, which I'm very happy for them in that respect. But, I mean, different generations have had to deal with different worldviews and different cultural perspectives that could be limiting for that. So,
Mhm.
you were just working with what you had.
Yeah, I wish I could have been more honest with myself sooner, or in the very least less insulting toward other people in trying to hide myself. But
Yes.
I was in a very, I mean, it's, I can't even, people have asked me about this because I mentioned it, and I said, well, it's hard to describe. I mean, if you read this in a book, it would almost seem contrived.
Yeah. Yeah.
How oppressive it was in a small town in the South.
Yeah.
But my goodness, yeah, when I told you, I don't know if I said this before we got on the air or not, but when people criticize the way I carried my books, I'm not making
Hmm.
that up. That
Hmm.
I was
Yeah.
told, you're carrying your books like a girl.
Right. Right.
Carrying my books, what?
Right. Like, these are heavy books. What am I supposed to do?
Did I put a pink bow on it and not see that? What? I
Right,
don't know.
exactly, right. Like, how does a girl carry books? I don't know.
Oh
I feel
man.
I feel like your revelatory dream where you had your
Yeah.
revelation, I
Yeah.
I'm just imagining the song, because you've told me you were into show tunes, from Rocky Horror, give yourself over to
Yeah.
absolute
It
pleasure.
almost was like that. The person who wound up in the fantasy, I won't say names, but is a famous drag performer.
Oh, okay, okay.
And it almost was like that scene where Frankenfurter just sneaks into bed.
Yeah.
He's like, "What are you doing here?" Okay, that's cool.
Right, exactly. You you don't want to
It
break her
took me a while
heart.
to really understand what was going on. It
Um,
was not an unwelcome intrusion.
so I know that you were not out and out when you were living in Louisiana.
Definitely, and
Um,
I wasn't even out to myself until I was living in Arizona for a while. That was years later.
oh,
Yeah,
okay. Well, my next question was, what was your experience
yeah.
being queer in the Bible Belt? Do you feel like being bisexual made things better or worse? However, now that I have this point of view, now that I understand that, a little bit more of that, I
Yeah.
guess, what was your perception of queerness living in the Bible Belt then? And,
Well,
in that environment, do you think bisexuality was accepted a little bit, or is a little bit easier to accept for people than, outright gay, lesbian, or trans?
there's this perception that it is because you hear about a lot of people who are gay or lesbian and they first come out as bisexual, thinking
Hmm.
that'll somehow cushion the blow, or maybe that they're convincing themselves of it because the idea that they completely do not like the opposite sex.
Hmm.
They're taught to that's revolting
Hmm.
and it's wrong and all.
Right.
But that really is not the case. If you're anything other than straight,
Hmm.
there are
Right.
people who will hate that, and
Hmm.
you're told from from the youngest age, for all kinds of reasons, that that's wrong.
Right.
If anything, bisexuality is seen as somehow worse by some folks because there's this connotation of decadence.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you learn of these historic figures and even characters in fiction who are, oh, he's not just gay, he's bi. Oh Lord, you'll hide your
Right,
daughters
right,
and your sons, and
right, right. But honestly, like, just a quick sidebar, it's two people in the community. Honestly, like, for a week, like, once the pansexual label kind of came onto
Mhm,
the scene and started kind of being understood, I know that right now there's kind of a debate about,
mhm,
is pansexuality just bisexuality? But also, as far as bigots go, I feel like bigots, like, I mean, of course they hate pansexuality just like they hate anything that's not, heterosexuality. But I feel like they almost just don't even take it seriously because of how much they don't understand it. So they're like, I don't know. I don't know if you should butt cookware or not. I don't know. Like, um,
yeah,
but
yeah. The whole bisexual versus pansexual is a debate I don't even bother getting into. I
yes.
let people take whatever labels they're comfortable with. For me, I don't think it's quite accurate because I know there are certain gender expressions that I'm not attracted to at all.
Yes. Yes.
So, like I told you about those burly, manly men that I was surrounded
Yes.
by in Ville Platte that did nothing for me.
Right.
so,
Absolutely.
so that's an
Absolutely.
expression. There are a lot of bi and gay men who love those fellas, and you can have them and have them come over to help me move furniture, but
Right.
just stay
Like,
out of my bed.
I'll give you, honey, the only reason you're getting in this bed is so I can give you a one-on-one tarot reading, okay? Um, so
But so that's why I stick with bisexual. Is I know some people say, well, bi means two. You're leaving out. It's just language evolves. All right.
absolutely.
October is no longer the 8th month. So,
Right. Absolutely.
so
I was just gonna
but
say, yeah, absolutely. And I think eventually we will all just move past labels. That's why I just say I'm queer. You know what I
yes,
mean? It's just a nice blanket term.
that yeah, and I'll take that term as well. And yeah, I'm hoping for the day that there's no coming out,
Yeah.
where you just are.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
What a
like,
glorious day that
and
will be.
if a queer guy shows interest in a totally straight guy, the straight guy can just say not interested, and that'll be it.
Yes,
no
literally.
no anger, no hate, just not into you. Just like he could tell a girl he doesn't find attractive,
Right, like he's
and
just
need
not
not be
into
any
you.
malice.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
we're not there
so
yet. Clearly not
right,
there yet, but I hope
no.
for it.
I mean, I I actually audience too, you can be privy to this. I actually just made a phone call to Governor of Mississippi Tate Reeves
Mm,
to scold him about
mhm.
the initiative to ban trans athletes in Mississippi.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, I just did that. Once again, just the ability to simply exist and be able to pursue your truth like everybody else. That would just be, you know what I mean? That would just
Yeah.
be the best, honestly. But we'll get there. We'll get there. It's just gonna take
Yeah.
some work.
Mm. Yeah,
um,
we got to keep active.
exactly, exactly. So
Yes.
here's my question. So I'm fascinated because I've had bisexual women on the show, but I've never actually had a bisexual man on the show. Um,
Okay.
or bisexual male presenting. So how would you describe the experience of being a bisexual man in America? And what are the upsides and what are the downsides of that?
Oh, well, upsides, I'm just, happy to be honest with myself.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess the upside is you do have more options technically
Yeah.
on the dating scene. I've been
Hmm.
single for a few years now. My spouse and I, we came to an amicable, bleh, that word is a trippery, amicable divorce a few years ago. And so I've been single since then. And technically you got more options, but also there are people, the downside is, people have their assumptions,
Hmm.
all kinds of assumptions. One that the first one, I actually saw people saying this online. I see a lot less of it now, but when I first came out, I was seeing people saying, oh, bisexuals don't exist. And wondering, isn't it,
Oh.
we're all just still, semi-closeted gay men.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even among people who would accept it to a degree, they were still saying, well, bisexual men don't exist. Well, how do you believe that women can be bisexual, but men can't be?
Right. Right.
And of course, the answer to that is that by men haven't been sexualized quite as much as by women have in popular
Yes.
media.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Well, that's because the popular media is run by men. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Men and catering to straight men.
yes, yes, exactly, exactly. Um, so also, on the note of your spouse, so, you told me in your application email that they are
Yes,
also in the belly dancing troupe that you work with. So
yes, yes.
does that mean that your ex-spouse actually gets to kill you on stage?
That does happen. They have a couple of pieces where they perform as a Sith Lord from Star Wars, and I've been force choked.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's not my most spectacular death. I've been stabbed. I nearly had a fiery bow staff in the face. We didn't talk about that before the show. Uh, that wasn't my ex. That was another performer.
Oh my God.
I've blown up. I've been, it gets really hilarious.
I'm sure, but it's equally fun every time, I'm sure. And I'm sure it
Oh
gives you
yeah.
some strange therapeutic release to be destroyed as you
It's
have
kind of
been.
my thing. I get killed.
I was gonna say, being force choked, it goes right back to Lizzie Desaad.
Yes. Well, I'm following in the footsteps of the greats like Leslie Jordan and Sean Bean.
Yes,
Yes, like
yes,
Sean Bean,
absolutely.
stop complaining about it. It's a living. you
Right,
know,
literally.
if you ever read Leslie Jordan's autobiography, My Trip Down the Pink Carpet, he talks about all the times he's gotten murdered in horror movies, and boy, some of
I remember specifically American Horror Story Roanoke.
mm-hmm.
First of all, the first half of that season was really good. The second half was trash. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry if you disagree, Jean-Pierre, but
I do.
but yes, no,
Mhm.
but yes, his Leslie Jordan's death in Roanoke was
Yeah,
pretty fucking grisly.
yeah,
I will say.
yeah. Well, his
Um
death in Jason Goes to Hell, one of the Friday the 13th
I
movies.
haven't seen it yet. I have not seen it
It's
yet.
it's really not one of the stronger entries, but you get to see Leslie Jordan get his face shoved into a deep fat fryer. Oh, sorry, that was a spoiler.
Oh my God, no! That was what, the 90s. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
little too late for it to be a spoiler
yeah,
now.
yeah,
My God.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, spoiler alert, Leslie Jordan gets killed in a horror movie. So.
Right, there you go. There you go. What qualities do you look for in women that you don't look for in men, vice versa? And what are constant
Mhm.
factors between the two that attract you?
Oh, jeez, it's in I actually this is gonna sound very strange, but I told you I don't go for those burly manly men,
Right.
but I do find masculine women quite attractive.
Mm.
The tomboys,
Yeah.
and such,
Yes.
So that's an interesting facet. Figure that out if you can.
Right.
In men, I don't know. I really like effeminate men,
Hmm.
and of course there are non-binary individuals. Androgynous folks that I really find attractive.
Hmm.
So I don't think there are any qualities in women that I don't find attractive in men except the masculinity,
Right. Yeah.
the strong
Yeah.
masculinity. Um, what was the second part of the question? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Oh, I was just gonna no. Well, I mean, the question was,
Mhm.
what do you find? What are some common things
Oh, the
between
common things.
men and women
Uh,
that
well,
you
people who
find
stand
attractive?
out.
Uh-huh.
After living in a small town where
Yeah.
practically everyone was dressing the same. In the 90s, there was a weird trend of in country music attire. They were all wearing these colorful striped shirts and cowboy hats. And talk about you go into a school dance and you're like, okay, how many of that guy do you see?
Oh my God. And as Boot Scoot and Boogie plays loudly in
Or
the
yes,
background.
yes. And then when people stand out on their own, have their own sense of style, and maybe they have tattoos or interesting haircuts and
Right.
such. I'm a tattoo collector myself. So,
Oh, nice, nice. Okay, okay. So, you're kind of, your main staples are like, Ellen Ripley from uh
yeah, yeah.
well, I was gonna say David Bowie for David Bowie's androgyny, but honestly, everybody wants David Bowie. It doesn't matter who you
Yes.
are. Even heterosexual men want David Bowie. They just are too ashamed to admit it.
Yeah, he's the type that makes them uncomfortable.
Completely, completely. Um, so I guess, once again, you really kind of weren't out with yourself at the time in Louisiana.
Right.
But, I guess this next question still holds a little bit of weight. So, has moving out of Louisiana and the Bible Belt as a queer person taught you anything about yourself and or your identity?
Well, it definitely tells me that I lived in a very cloistered little community.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's and when I hear people say hateful things or they vote for these candidates to say the worst things,
Mm-hmm.
they somehow imagine all these queer folks, these immigrants, etc.,
Yes.
aberrations. It's like, and I'm not letting them off the hook, but I see where they're coming from because that's all they know.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was in my little town, and I would see people on TV who were, gay people and talk shows and all that. And I imagine that these were just people on the fringe, that they can never really be that many of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get out of your little town and you move to Arizona and then Chicago, you realize, well, there's lots more different kinds of people out here than I ever even saw on television, let alone than existed in my town.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear people, you see them on the internet saying, "Oh, you city folks, you're living in a bubble." I'm like, you've got it the wrong way around, man.
Yeah, yeah. Or at the very least, my bubble's a little bit more broad than your
Yeah.
bubble is, you know.
Especially when I used to hear people complain, one of the stupidest complaints of any TV show, oh, it's so unrealistic, all those different ethnicities and such, just being friends together. I'm like,
Yeah.
have you come to the Berlin Club on a Saturday night? Have you come to any of the belly dance shows that I've been part of? Have you met my
Yes.
friends? You got
Yes.
a show with an office that's got nothing but white people in it in New York City. You want to
Lit-
talk not realistic?
right. Right. Literally. 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 Um Okay. Well, Jean-Pierre, on that note, let's take a quick break.
All right.
But when we come back, we'll get a little bit more into the life and times of Jean Pierre Vidrine. And we're back with Jean Pierre Vidrine, a Vidream, if you will. Um,
I've actually
so,
heard that. It
so
seems so obvious.
So, in your application, you told me that you were from Chicago, but you kind of skip talking about Arizona. So
Okay.
I guess this question has evolved from what brought you to Chicago to what brought you to Arizona, then brought you to Chicago.
Well, that answer is the same for both. It was my spouse's job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My spouse and I married shortly after they graduated from college,
Mhm.
and they were in microbiology, and they got a job
Oh.
in Arizona doing research, scientific research.
Mhm.
And after I remember at the time the economy was kind of going down, and their grant money was running out, so they had to
Mhm.
look for another job. Weren't so many opportunities in Arizona. We were in Tucson,
Mhm.
and I think we were tired of vehicle ownership, the money pit that owning a car is. So, and we knew that Chicago and other cities had good public transit,
Mhm.
whereas Tucson still thought it was a trail dust town. So we looked. Chicago was just one of the places they looked for work, and they managed to get a job here. They've had a career change since then. They're now working in software development or some such.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but that's what brought us here.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, but I mean, Tucson and Chicago are both once again, quite different from a small Louisiana town.
Yes, definitely.
Um, but I feel like I don't know, I feel like or I guess rather, do you kind of feel like you're where you're meant to be?
I do. I mean, when we came to Chicago, we started connecting with other performers because they were a belly dancer. Even they started belly dancing in Tucson,
Mhm.
and actually they started when we were still in Louisiana, more just for exercise. But they got into performing in
Mhm.
Tucson.
Mhm.
Started connecting with different performers and just seeing the local the drag scene and the queer
Mhm.
scene. And I, of course, I learned about the theaters here when I was still in Louisiana in college.
Mhm.
That's how interesting the theater scene is in Chicago, and to actually experience it firsthand, it was like, wow, yes,
Right, like
so glad to be here.
blown away. Have you ever been
Oh
to a
yeah,
Steppenwolf?
I oddly enough have not. Definitely going to make it a point to do that once things open up and it's
Mhm.
genuinely safe.
Mhm. I was also going to say, rest in peace, Second City. I know that the Second City in
Hmm.
Chicago is no longer. Is no longer. It's just gone now.
Yeah, yeah. This pandemic, we lost that. We lost the Mercury Theater. That's a local
Mm-hmm.
place I had seen a number of shows at.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, some of them. I know that the people are still around. Maybe they could come together and resurrect one or more of these companies.
Right.
Other companies are finding a presence online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and the Second City is an entity
Hmm.
across the United States. So, but it's so unfortunate because a lot of big names for the Second
Yeah.
City came out of Chicago specifically.
Hmm.
Um, but I digress. Um, let's talk about, okay, Rocks Rocks Geek.
Yes. RAKS geek.
Rocks Geek.
Yeah.
Um, so now I know that you're basically uh you're basically the fall guy for the
Yeah.
company.
Living
uh
prop, as we like to
right, the
say.
living prop for the company. But so what drew you to it? What drew you there? How did you become involved?
Well, when we were still in Tucson, we learned. My spouse learned of this troupe that was geek themed, belly dance troupe,
Mhm.
and they incorporate stuff from Star Wars, comic books, popular fantasy and science fiction movies.
Mhm.
Hence the term geek into their belly dance performances. Raks is the Arabic word for dance.
Mm.
So belly dance is actually formerly known as Raks Sharki. You'll
Mm.
see a number of belly dance troupes and performers call themselves Raks something.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. So before we actually left Tucson, we were definitely planning on moving to Chicago. My spouse sent a message off to Dawn Zion Moon, who's the organizer of the troupe,
Uh-huh.
wanting to get connected. And I think they sent a video. They haven't done this in a while, but they used to perform as one of the Silent Hill nurses.
Oh,
You're familiar with that,
okay.
that video game there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And they've since kind of retired that piece, but now they perform as the Pyramid Head from Silent Hill.
A belly dancing pyramid head.
Yes.
Wow. I just don't even know I would not know what to do.
Yeah.
Oh my
Well,
God.
yeah. So that's how we got connected because Dawn was quite impressed with the belly dancing nurse, and so shortly after we moved here, they got connected. They had a mutual acquaintance that helped connect them,
Okay.
and and of course, and I came along. I'm not exactly sure how I got involved at first. I was just there, carrying the belly dancer stuff, like a
Right,
lot of
right, right.
husbands do. And somewhere along the line, got involved with the actual, handling props, and then sometimes actually performing.
Right. You were
Not
like,
dancing. I'm not a dancer.
I was gonna say you were probably, I imagine, in that situation, I would be like, well, I do have a background in performance, I do have a background in theater, so, and then, I just imagine them taking a look at you and being like, well, you look very murderable, I think it
I'm still
would.
not sure how that happened, how that started. People ask how that began. I'm like, I'm not really sure. It just sort of became a thing at some point. But actually, my spouse and I had performed together when we were still in Arizona.
Hmm.
There was a show called Fully Fusion in Phoenix, where the dancers are really encouraged to
Mm.
really go out of the box, do something unexpected. That
Hmm.
was where they debuted the Silent Hill Nurse piece. The following
Oh.
year, they did this piece where they got me to lip sync as a fire god, and they were the ice god. And
Ooh.
there's probably a video of it floating around somewhere. There was
Hmm.
a group called Girl Under Glass. They did a remake of it was a Madonna song. I'm having trouble. I can't remember the
I was
title
gonna
of it
say,
now.
weirdly enough, I feel like I have heard of
Yeah,
this, strangely enough, somewhere in the backlogs of my brain.
I
Girl Under
could melt
Glass.
your heart. I can't remember the title, but that song.
Right, right, right.
And I lip synced to that song and reacted to them dancing.
Hmm.
And I guess that was what set up the precedent for me actually performing with the dancers.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, I know this would be a very predictable choice, but if Rox Geek has not yet done a slave Leia from Return of the Jedi belly dancing number. I know it is predictable, but I still submit a petition for this to happen. And,
Well,
you know, perhaps you could get a fat suit and you could, you know, meet Jabba's fate in the end, you know?
well, they have done a number of Star Wars pieces, but I guarantee you they will not do that because Dawn Moon, she's been asked about that before, and she's
Mhm.
seen other belly dancers do that, and she's just firmly against it.
Uh-huh.
Because mainly it is called the slave Leia outfit.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
meant to be a demeaning outfit for the character because of
Yes.
the situation she was in. Even though it seems unnatural, she's just like, no.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
totally understand the reason for it. I think they have done uh, another Leia piece, or there was talk of doing a Leia, but in her more covered up white outfit or something,
Right. Right.
a version of it. They always adapt it so to change it to look more belly dance.
Right.
And also they also do fire spinning in the troupe. And
Ooh.
one person did a piece as Rose, the character from The Last Jedi.
Oh yeah, Rose
Yes.
Tico.
Yeah, Rose Tico.
Yeah.
And so always just, you know, there's going to be plenty of Star Wars, but never the slave Leia. So you may as well just drop the idea now.
Well, you know, okay, alternate application, alternate petition. Okay, okay, bear with me. Okay.
Okay.
This is from the expanded universe, so she's technically not canon right now, but there's rumors floating around that they want to make her canon. Darth Talon,
Hmm.
the Twi'lek apprentice to Darth Maul from the
Well,
expanded universe.
well, I guarantee you that my ex knows about that character. They
Mhm.
love Star Wars. They got the novels, the comics, the toys, you know. So that's not impossible.
I was gonna say,
Definitely not impossible. It's up to
just
them, though.
just slip that in there, and then if it comes to fruition, please just send me the video evidence. That's all I need. That's all I need.
But what they're best known for, I don't know how I could not bring this up earlier, but talking about Star Wars, there you can easily find video of the organizer Dawn Moon as the belly dancing Wookiee. They actually performed that piece on Britain's Got Talent.
What?
Yes, yes.
What?
In fact, if you look at the publicity photos we've taken for photo shoots, it's usually me in that costume because they want to dress up as other characters for the photos. So they just, you know, put me. That's like the weirdest drag I've ever done.
I was gonna say, yeah, you know, we're
Yeah.
all born naked and the rest is just, you know,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so immediately, so as soon as we're done, I've got to go find that. I've got to go find
Yeah,
that
yeah.
because that is completely out of left field.
Yeah.
Completely.
I'll email you a link to the website.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. So, you know, I'm sure as my audience has gathered now by listening to our conversation, Jean-Pierre,
Yeah.
you know, you are an eclectic man, obviously, in all facets of your life. But you know, whenever you submitted your application, you know, part of what you talked about was your musical interest, and
Oh yeah.
I could talk about music forever. Audience, I'm sorry, we're gonna talk about music again.
Hmm.
You know, you talked about, you know, your interest in heavy metal, you
Right.
know, alternative rock, or, you know, more hardcore stuff, but also how there's kind of you know, an interest in show tunes for you as well. So, you know, Jean-Pierre, what's kind of the through line? What kind of makes all of that click for Jean-Pierre, I guess?
Well, we've been talking about theater, and I think that's it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of heavy metal and rock and roll. It's about just getting drunk and having sex, and that's all fun. But
Yeah.
I'm much more into like, give me an Alice Cooper song that's about this villain stalking the
Yeah.
night. Yeah,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
along those lines, or a Blue Oyster Cult song that's about aliens.
Right,
That's
absolutely.
more what I love. You know, give me a great story in the song, and of course,
Yeah.
show tunes often
Right, I
do that
mean,
as well. Most of the time, do that.
obvi. Um, I was gonna say, you know, that was a big draw for me early on when I was discovering my
Mhm.
taste in music. I mean, of course, because of my background in theater, of course, I knew so many show tunes. But also, you know, I've mentioned Muse every single time I talk about music. You know, they were kind of like the first big modern band that I loved. And, you
Mhm.
know, I don't know if you're familiar with their work. Uh,
Muse? I've heard the name. I probably heard their songs. I can't
Muse
think of them offhand.
Muse would be right up your alley. That's what I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
say. Their most
Yeah.
recent work, not that good. So literally you can stop, like, so listen to their first 6 albums and then you can stop. There you go. That's what you need. That's all you need to know.
I'll
But
check it out. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, no, like I totally understand that, wanting to have something tell a story, wanting to, some music can be an escape, and
Hmm.
sometimes, you want something that you can listen to that can put you in your little mind palace for a little
Yes.
bit.
Hmm.
Um, absolutely.
Hmm.
So yeah, you had mentioned how you read tarot.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been reading tarot, and what was the allure for the mystic? And when I say the
Hmm.
mystic, I just mean, in the broad sense of the metaphysics and everything like that
Right.
for you.
Well, I've been doing tarot about 13 years.
Okay.
I know that because that's when they reprinted the Vertigo Tarot in
Mhm.
2008. And
Mhm.
that was my first deck.
Mhm.
What the allure was, you growing up Catholic, and I'm still not entirely not of the faith. I haven't been to a Catholic mass in a long time,
Mhm.
but my faith has just broadened out.
Mhm.
But you stories about miracles and prayer and saints and angels and all. And when we married, they
Mhm.
were, I guess, agnostic, kind of leaning atheist, maybe.
Mhm.
But they eventually did find their faith in Wicca.
Mm. Okay.
And so I learned a lot about these other practices and such, and tarot kind of just came along with that. And there was an interest there immediately
Mhm.
because I love art. I love the idea of being able to affect change or do magic with images.
Right.
That was an immediate appeal. And so of course, we've talked when we weren't recording, we talked about collecting comics and all that. And I buy a lot of back issues, and I'd see ads for that Vertigo Tarot from
Mhm.
those 90s era comics, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I wish I'd bought that back then. And then suddenly it was reprinted.
Right.
Like,
All of a sudden it was like the universe was like, here you go.
yeah.
Like,
And it went from there, just because I already had a foot in the mystical door, with my own religious faith, the faith that I was born into,
mhm.
even though they try to talk about it in different terms.
Well,
you know.
but Catholicism, especially
Mhm.
especially Catholicism, is of course heavily influenced by paganism. It's
Yes,
heavily
absolutely.
influenced by mystic ritual and everything like
Yeah.
that. So
Mhm.
it's not a huge. It's just a different. It's a
Yeah.
different. It's the same means to a different end,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
guess.
you don't want to use the word magic, but okay, it's just prayer, but reciting
Lighting a
words to
candle.
affect change. Yeah, lighting a candle, often in front of a statue or a
Right.
painting.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Exactly.
I think you're just
Exactly.
splitting hairs here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, if you could go back and give your childhood self any words of comfort or wisdom, what would
Oh
they
man,
be?
definitely do not let others influence you and how you feel about anything, especially yourself. 'Cause I think so many of the issues I had, whether I was either self-loathing or expressing terrible attitudes that I'm now regretting, it was because I let other people get into my head or put
Hmm.
me on the defensive. And also, and it's a bit of a cliche though, but it will get better.
I imagine you didn't always know if it would.
No, I sure didn't. There were times I thought, that it's always going to be this lousy, and other
Hmm.
times I convinced myself that it wasn't so lousy.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, but it did get better. I wish it could have been possible earlier on to have been honest with myself.
Well,
Even in
you
private, I couldn't do that. That's how that's just
right.
how oppressive the conformistic attitudes were.
Well, my cousin Stephanie, that I had on my Thanksgiving
Mhm.
special, um she she told me once, she sees she sees a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
she's in her transition right now. She sees a
Oh,
therapist. And talking about, she talks about how, she always wished, maybe she could come out sooner,
mm-hmm.
she could, start being the woman she always knew she was sooner. And her therapist told her this, it's so simple, but it's so powerful. We don't know what we don't know. And
Yeah.
you know that's that's just all there is to it. At the end of the day, we just don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And yeah, so there's no point in really feeling that way, but we can't help it. But we can comfort ourselves by saying, "Look, you didn't know any better.
Right,
Now you know better. Be
absolutely.
glad of that."
Oh yeah, if I had to ask myself the same question I just asked you,
Yeah.
I would say I would go back in time and slap the shit out of my younger self, because the only you don't actually know anything about politics. You're just regurgitating what your parents say, and honey, you're a little queer boy who just wants other boys. So it's it, it's the South, baby. It's the
Yes.
South. So Jean-Pierre, thank you so much for being here with me. I'm so glad I got to have this conversation with you. I cannot wait for my audience to hear, what you have to say. I can't wait for them to jump down the rabbit hole of of belly dancing as soon as they get done listening to this episode.
Really didn't
Um,
expect that to come up so much, but there we are.
but there we are. So were there any shout outs, promos, or philanthropic opportunities that you had that my audience should know about right off the top of your head?
Well, this Saturday is an event. There's a local theater called the Newport Theater.
Mm-hmm.
Like most theaters, they're not actually having any live audience shows,
Mm-hmm.
but they're having a lot of virtual events.
Okay.
And the theater has a big focus on burlesque,
Okay.
and they're really pushing themselves to be a safe place for burlesque performers to perform and to promote each other. It's a virtual event. The format, it's by a group called Queer Coded. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I know you like the
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting format. You go in, you basically create a little avatar for yourself, looks like an old Nintendo character, and you walk around a virtual room and all. You can even sit at a table and talk with each other. You got your webcam on yourself, and then there are pre-recorded performances throughout the event.
I love that.
Yeah,
Oh my
so
God.
you can buy your ticket ahead of time, and but check it out. Doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can see it. You don't have to be in Chicago. So it's this Saturday night, but just go to the newporttheater.com. I guess I'll look for the link and I'll email it to you.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Absolutely. So audience, you know what this means. This is coming out on a Friday. That means that tomorrow night, if you're not a weekend warrior like I am, y'all need to get your asses to your computer and go to the newporttheater.com to view
Yes.
some great burlesque. Well, Jean-Pierre, thank you once again for coming out in the woods. And
Mhm.
hopefully we can talk again soon, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.